Anyway, this God, Mikveh Israel, which we only have one God, we have different names for him through the different ways in which he interacts with the Jewish people, with the world. Umoshi'o be'etzara. You go to battle, says Rambam. You have to have faith when you're in battle that God is going to save you in this difficult time. V'yeda. And he should know, not he should think. V'yeda, and he should know. Sh'al yichud Hashem hu oseh milchama. That he's going to battle for the sanctification, unification of God's name. V'yasim nafsho bekapo. And he places his hands in his palm. V'lo yira, v'lo yifached. He's not afraid, he's not scared. V'chol hanilcham bechol libo. And a person who fights with all their heart. Belo fahad, with no fear. V'tiyeh kavanato lekadesh et Hashem bilvad. And his intention in battle is only to sanctify God's name. Muftach lo. He is assured. He is guaranteed. He is promised. Shelo yimtza nezek. That no challenge, nothing bad will happen to him. Velo tagiehu ra'ah. That evil shall not befall him. That's a wild haftacha to make. You know, he's promising you something. That's a dangerous promise to make. To promise the Jewish people that this is what would happen. Rambam is reading the Pesukim when it says, Lo ta'arot mipenehem, lo tira'um. You know how Rambam is reading that? Says the Brisker Rav. Listen to what he says. He says that it's not that God is promising that if you go to war, nothing's going to happen. We know that that's not true. Rather, he's promising something different. That if a person is fighting with all of his heart, with zero fear in his heart, that's a hard thing to get to, by the way. No fear. And his kavanah, his intention, is only not to be promoted to more falafels, okay? Not to show off, not because of a bloodlust, not because he wants more space in his backyard, but he's fighting because he's protecting the Jewish people. It's a mitzvah. He's doing it for the sake of God, to sanctify God's name. Hashem says, muftach lo. Shelo, no way. Impossible. He's not going to die. Let's find an example of this. Only people who are going into war, into battle, with no fear. Says the Gemara, what does it mean, no fear? Amar Rabbi Elazar, no fear min ha'averot shebiyadam. They don't have one unresolved sin. So if you had one sin you didn't do teshuvah on, go home. At that point, when the army was made up of the most righteous people, okay, you could understand the pasuk saying, Al tira, al techat, don't fear, don't tremble, don't run. Everyone's like, obviously. Because that was the army. That was what it was supposed to be when it's run al pi Torah. Okay? Let's be clear. The Yevanim, the Greeks, were not trying to kill the Jews. They were very happy to let them eat, all delicious foods, dipping in tzatziki, Greek yogurt, no problem. There was zero threat to their life, security, or physicality. The only war that the Greeks had with the Jews in their dominion over them was what? To take away their spirituality. So by definition, their war was only, literally only, l'kadesh et Hashem. It was only for God. Says the Brisker Rav, so what does the pasuk mean? What the pasuk is telling you is, the milchamto shel Yisrael lo hayita begvuratam. The war of the Jews was not with their might, rak bebitchonam, only with their faith. And if they had that kind of faith, then they merited miracles. So it's not that when you go to war, miracles happen, so don't be afraid. It's when you go to war, comma, and you are not afraid, comma, because you know that the war is not being fought by the strength of your arms, by the might of whatever, you know it's God, comma, then nobody falls. Now you understand, Yehoshua is like, what's going on? How'd we lose a few dozen people? How'd that happen? According to one opinion. How did one guy die? He's going Majnun. I can't believe it. Because no one should fall if God's running the battle. My friends, that means that what we're learning over here is something incredible. That a Jew has a power to make miracles. Their faith, says the Briskerov, made the miracle. Their emunat ha'emet created it. They went to battle for God, knowing they could rely on Him. And what happened? God comes through. Why does He come through? Because of the emunah. That means that if I want to make a miracle, what do I have to do? I have to work on approaching something with absolute, complete faith. Now do you understand why the terminology we use is that he should rely on Mikveh Yisrael? Because the work of finding that miraculous salvation, where did it exist? It wasn't Amonai Ish Milchama. It wasn't in God's hands. Crazy thing to say. It was in whose hands? Our hands. So listen to this wild conundrum. The people, the warriors, have to believe that the battle is in God's hands. But the battle isn't in God's hands. Whose hands is the battle in? Their hands. Just not in their might. Not in the size of the other side's army. Not in how many missiles they have. Not in their air defense systems. Ela b'bitchonam. So by believing that the war was completely in God's hands, God would save everyone. And then it turns out that the war was actually in whose hands? Their hands.